The transmission came through on every available frequency, desperate and raw. Oren's hands trembled as he recorded the message for the third time, knowing this might be his civilization's final act. Around him, the council chamber's crystalline walls flickered with failing energy, cracks spreading like spiderwebs through the once perfect structure. Outside, the screams had finally stopped. That was somehow worse than the noise. 3 months ago, the Ravagers arrived without warning. The Lyrian defense satellites registered massive biological signatures dropping out of faster-than-light travel, but by the time anyone understood what they were seeing, half the orbital stations were already gone. The Lyrians had no weapons, no soldiers, no concept of organized violence. They were artists, philosophers, mathematicians who had spent 10,000 years building a society based on pure thought and beauty. War was something they studied as an ancient barbarism, a phase that evolved species left behind. The Ravagers taught them differently. Oren watched the data streams, painting horror across his screens. 17 colony worlds consumed, 4 billion Lyrians dead. The enemy moved like a plague, their organic ships stripping everything in their path. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, didn't even seem to notice when the Lyrians tried to surrender. They just ate. Planets stripped to bare rock. Space stations dissolved into component atoms. Everything that was Lyrian civilization, gathered and consumed by creatures that existed only to feed. The Galactic Council offered sympathy and debate. They sent observers who documented the destruction with careful neutrality. They drafted resolutions and formed committees. But nobody sent help. The Council feared the Ravagers, and more than that, they feared what might happen if anyone actually tried to fight them. Better to let one civilization die than risk awakening something worse. That left one option. One species that every civilized race whispered about in worried tones. The humans. Oren had studied the reports. Humanity came from a world the galaxy classified as a death planet, where everything evolved to survive through violence. The humans themselves were classified as predators, persistence hunters who killed through exhaustion and overwhelming force. They had reached space age while still actively fighting wars among themselves. Other species found this incomprehensible. The humans considered it normal. Most species avoided human space. Their ships were too heavily armed. Their colonies bred too fast. Their culture celebrated conflict in ways that made peaceful races uncomfortable. The few trade agreements humanity maintained existed because humans were useful for jobs nobody else wanted to do. Mining in radioactive zones, salvage in gravity wells, security work that might turn violent. Humans did these things without complaint. Almost cheerfully, now Oren was about to ask them for something much worse. The message was simple. Oren explained what the Ravagers were doing. Showed footage of Lyrian children dissolving as bioships sprayed them with digestive enzymes. Played audio of the last transmission from their oldest colony before it went silent. He didn't beg. The humans apparently respected directness. He just stated facts and made a request. We are dying. Our civilization will be extinct within weeks. We have no way to defend ourselves and no allies willing to help. If humanity values life, if you believe some things are worth fighting for, please come. We have nothing to offer as payment except our gratitude and the knowledge that you saved something beautiful from being erased. Oren sent the transmission toward the nearest human territory and waited. The council told him humans were unpredictable. They might ignore the message entirely. They might demand impossible payment. They might come just to study the Ravagers for their own purposes. Nobody knew how humans would react because nobody really understood how they thought. 6 hours later, a response arrived. Not from Earth Command or human government. From a single ship. Defiant received your transmission. We are changing course. Estimated arrival in 40 hours. Hold on, the message was short, almost casual. But something in those words made Oren feel hope for the first time in months. The human ship wasn't asking for authorization, wasn't demanding payment or negotiating terms. They just heard someone needed help and turned toward the danger. Oren brought the message to what remained of the Lyrian Council. Most were dead. Others had fled to the deepest shelters, knowing it only delayed the inevitable. The few who remained looked at him with empty eyes. "The humans are coming," Oren said. "One ship," replied Kessa, her crystalline form dulled by exhaustion, "against thousands of Ravager bioships. What can one ship do?" "I don't know. But they're coming anyway." The council sat in silence, processing this. The Lyrians understood mathematics, probability, logic. The human response made no sense by any rational measure. One ship couldn't change anything. The tactical computer gave the Defiant a 0% survival probability against even a small Ravager force. Why would they come if they cannot win? Kessa asked. Oren looked at the human message again, studying the few words for meaning. The galaxy feared humans because they were violent. But maybe that wasn't the whole truth. Maybe the galaxy feared them because humans did things that made no logical sense, like flying towards certain death because someone asked for help. "I think," Oren said slowly, "that humans don't think about whether they can win. They think about whether something needs to be done." Outside, the Ravager ships continued their methodical destruction of the Lyrian homeworld's outer defensive ring. The crystalline satellites shattered one by one, leaving gaps in the shield network. Within days, maybe hours, the Ravagers would reach the planet's surface. 4 billion Lyrians remained. Trapped and defenseless, Oren watched the sky through the fractured walls and waited for the humans to arrive. He didn't know what one ship could accomplish. But for the first time since this nightmare began, the Lyrians weren't facing extinction alone. Somewhere in the dark, a human crew was racing toward them. That had to mean something. Derek Walsh had been in the shower when the distress call arrived. Now he stood dripping on the bridge of the Defiant, wearing borrowed pants and nothing else, staring at footage that made his stomach turn. The Lyrians being dissolved alive. Cities that looked like art installations crumbling under biological acid. Children running from things that used to be their parents. "How long ago was this transmitted?" Derek asked. 47 hours, his communications officer replied. "They sent it wide spectrum, probably hoping anyone would answer." "Did anyone?" Galactic Council logged it and filed it under ongoing situation. Translation. "They're going to talk about it until there's nobody left to save." Derek made his decision in the time it took to breathe. "Plot a course. Maximum speed. Tell engineering I want every drop of power they can give me." His first officer, a woman named Rachel, who had served with him for 6 years, looked at him carefully. "Sir, this isn't our jurisdiction. Earth Command hasn't authorized intervention. The Lyrians are 3 sectors outside human space, I know. The Ravagers have consumed 14 civilizations. Their fleet strength is estimated at over 2,000 bioships, I know that too. We're 1 frigate with a crew of 90. Our tactical computer says we have 0 chance of survival if we engage." Derek pulled on the shirt someone handed him. "Rachel, I watched that footage." "Did you?" "Yes, sir." "Then you know we don't have a choice." "Set the course." Rachel nodded slowly. She had known what Derek would decide. That was why she served with him. "Aye, sir." Course laid in. As the Defiant turned toward Lyrian space, Derek sent a message to Earth Command explaining his actions. He didn't ask for permission. He just informed them where he was going and why. Then he sent another message on open channels to any human ship within range. "This is Captain Derek Walsh of the Defiant. The Lyrian civilization is being exterminated by an enemy they cannot fight. I am responding to their distress call. If you have weapons, ammunition, or medical supplies, meet us at these coordinates. If you have ships, come ready to fight. Defiant out." Derek expected nothing. Maybe a few responses from other military vessels if they happened to be nearby. What happened instead changed everything. Within 6 hours, 40 ships confirmed they were changing course to join him. Freighters, mining vessels, colony transports, and 12 military frigates. Captains Derek had never met were stripping their ships of cargo and loading whatever weapons they could find. One mining captain sent a message that just said, "Got fusion cutters and a crew that knows how to use them. On our way." By the time Derek's message reached Earth, the response was already building. Earth Command received his report and immediately forwarded it up the chain. The footage of Lyrian children dying reached the military council within an hour. The debate lasted 15 minutes. Admiral Patricia Hayes was in her office when the order came through. She was 60 years old, gray-haired, and had fought in every major human conflict for the past 3 decades. She had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in combat and absolutely honest everywhere else. People said Patricia Hayes would walk through fire for her crew and send entire enemy fleets to hell without losing sleep. She watched the Lyrian footage once. Then she stood up and started making calls. I need every available warship in Sectors 7 through 12. I don't care what their current assignment is. I need them ready to move in 24 hours. Full combat loadout. Authorization code Hayes 77 Alpha. Her aide looked nervous. Admiral, the Council hasn't formally approved military intervention. They will. Get me the ships. The aide was right to be nervous. The Galactic Council sent immediate messages urging caution and restraint. They explained that military action against the Ravagers might provoke them. That humanity should consider diplomatic solutions. That intervention in affairs outside human space set dangerous precedents. Patricia read the messages and deleted them. By the end of the first day, 200 human warships were moving toward Lyrian space. By the end of the second day, that number had doubled. Ships came from everywhere. Active military vessels, reserve fleet units that hadn't seen combat in years, and even a few private ships owned by rich humans who decided this was worth fighting for. The Galactic Council watched in growing alarm as the human fleet assembled. They sent more messages. This was inappropriate, aggressive, dangerous. Humanity was acting like an uncontrolled weapon. Patricia finally responded to one of their transmissions. Her message was short. A civilization is dying. They asked for help. We're giving it. If you want to debate this, do it after we're done. Hayes out. 3 days after Oren sent his desperate transmission, the human fleet numbered 300 warships supported by thousands of auxiliary vessels. It was the largest military force humanity had assembled since the colonial wars. Ships that should have taken weeks to mobilize were ready in days because every captain, every crew member, every support officer understood what was at stake. This wasn't about territory or resources or political advantage. This was about something the humans took very seriously. Someone asked for help. Patricia stood on the bridge of her flagship, the dreadnought called Relentless, and looked at the fleet display. 300 ships, maybe 50,000 crew members, against an enemy that had wiped out 14 civilizations without losing a single engagement. Her tactical officer ran the numbers and gave her the probability assessment. The computer said they had a 40% chance of winning if the Ravagers fought stupidly, 10% if the Ravagers fought smart, 2% if this was actually the full Ravager fleet strength. Patricia studied the numbers for a moment. Then she deleted the file. All ships, this is Hayes. We're not going to Lyrian space to win by the numbers. We're going because it's the right thing to do. The Ravagers think they can consume whoever they want because nobody fights back. Time to teach them about humanity. Fleet will jump in 30 minutes. Hayes out. The human armada vanished into faster-than-light travel, racing toward a species they had never met, to fight an enemy they barely understood for one simple reason. Because someone needed help, and humans answered. The Ravager bioships looked like massive tumors floating in space. Each one was different, grown rather than built, covered in pulsing organic tissue and lined with cavities that leaked digestive fluids into vacuum. They moved in swarms, thousands of them surrounding the Lyrian homeworld like insects around a dying animal. The largest ones were 3 kilometers long. The smallest were still bigger than most civilized species used for warships. Derek's Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel first, arriving hours ahead of the main fleet. He needed to see what they were actually facing. The tactical display lit up immediately with contacts. Red markers everywhere. The computer stopped counting at 500 and just displayed multiple hostiles. Sir, we have incoming, Rachel said, her voice tight. 40 bioships breaking formation and heading our way. Derek watched the approaching swarm. The bioships moved wrong, flowing through space like they were swimming. No thrusters, no engine wash. Just organic propulsion that made his skin crawl. How long until the fleet arrives? 4 hours. We need to give the Lyrians 4 hours then. Weapons free. Target the closest ships. The Defiant's railguns opened fire, sending tungsten rounds downrange at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through the lead bioship's hull, tearing massive wounds in its tissue. The creature screamed across every radio frequency, a sound like nails on metal mixed with something wet and dying. Then it exploded, not from the damage but from some internal reaction, spraying biological matter across space. 1 down, Derek said. 39 to go. The battle became a desperate running fight. The Defiant was fast, built for patrol and pursuit rather than straight combat. Derek used that speed, never staying still, always moving. The bioships were tough but slow to turn. He exploited that, hitting them from angles they couldn't cover, then burning away before they could respond, but there were so many of them. For every bioship the Defiant killed, 2 more took its place. They learned quickly, too. After losing 10 ships to railgun fire, the Ravagers changed tactics. They started coordinating, trying to box the Defiant in, limiting its movement options. Hull breach on Deck 4, Rachel reported. One of them sprayed us with something. It's eating through the armor. Seal that section and vent it to space. How long until the fleet? 2 hours. Derek checked his ammunition count. They had maybe 30 minutes of sustained combat left before the railguns ran dry. After that, they would be down to missiles and point defense. Not nearly enough. Then the bioships did something unexpected. They stopped attacking. Just hung in space, watching the Defiant with organs that looked disturbingly like eyes. Derek felt his hair stand up. These things were smart. They were analyzing, learning, figuring out how humans fought. Sir, we have a bigger problem, Rachel said quietly. Long-range sensors are picking up a new formation. Looks like the main Ravager fleet is on approach. They must have detected us. Derek pulled up the scan and felt his blood go cold. 2,000 bioships, some of them the size of small moons. The scouting force they had been fighting was nothing. This was the real threat, the force that had consumed 14 civilizations. Send a message to Admiral Hayes, tell her what's coming. Already done? She says to hold position. The fleet will be here in 90 minutes. Derek looked at his crew. They were scared but holding steady. Good people who signed up to patrol trade routes and respond to distress calls. None of them expected to face this. But none of them suggested running either. We hold then. All power to engines and shields. We're going to make these things work for every meter. The Ravager scouting force attacked again, but this time with clear purpose. They weren't trying to kill the Defiant anymore. They were trying to hold it in place until the main fleet arrived. Derek realized the trap and started burning hard, trying to break free, but the bioships had him boxed in. Everywhere he turned, more of them waited. Then space lit up with human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Not the full fleet? Just the fastest ships, the ones that could get here first. 50 frigates and destroyers, appearing in formation around the Defiant, like they had been practicing this maneuver for years. The lead ship transmitted on all frequencies. Patricia's voice cut through the static. All ships, weapons free. Show these things what happens when they mess with someone under human protection. What happened next became the stuff of legend. 50 human warships opened fire simultaneously. Railguns, missiles, plasma cannons, and weapons the Lyrians didn't have names for. The Ravager scouting force vanished in a storm of fire and metal. Bioships that had survived for centuries, that had consumed entire civilizations, were torn apart in seconds. The surviving Ravagers fled. Actually turned and ran, something witnesses said they had never seen before. The biological ships scattered, breaking formation, trying to escape the humans' overwhelming firepower. Patricia didn't let them. Pursuit pattern. I want every ship that attacked the Defiant destroyed. No survivors. The human ships chased the fleeing Ravagers across the system, hunting them down one by one. It took 6 hours. When it was done, 412 bioships were dead. Drifting as frozen meat in the vacuum. Derek brought the Defiant alongside the Relentless for damage assessment. His ship was barely holding together, armor melted, hull breached in a dozen places. But they had survived. Patricia's face appeared on his screen. Good work, Captain. You gave us time to arrive? Admiral, the main fleet is still coming. 2,000 ships? What we just fought was nothing. I know. I've seen the scans. Patricia looked tired but determined. The rest of our fleet will be here within the hour. Then we'll see how tough these things really are. Derek wanted to point out the odds. Wanted to say that 300 human ships against 2,000 Ravagers was still suicide, but he had watched Patricia's fleet tier through the scouting force like it was made of paper. Maybe, just maybe, the humans had a chance. On the Lyrian homeworld, Orn watched the battle through long-range sensors. The humans had arrived and destroyed a Ravager force in hours. But now the real fleet was coming. Every Lyrian knew what happened next. They had seen it happen to 14 other civilizations, except this time the prey had called for predators. And the predators came ready to hunt. Amy Carter stood in the cargo bay staring at pieces of dead alien. The Ravager bioship fragments floated in containment fields, still twitching with residual electrical activity. She was 26 years old, fresh from university with degrees in xenobiology and genetic analysis. This was supposed to be her first real assignment. Study alien life. Write papers. Maybe discover something interesting. Instead, she was elbow-deep in the biological equivalent of a war crime. This doesn't make sense, she muttered, running another scan. The cellular structure is incredibly complex. Multiple DNA frameworks. Genetic material from at least 6 different species all integrated into one organism. Her assistant, an older researcher named Philip, leaned over her shoulder. Could it be artificial? Something engineered? Maybe originally? But look at this. Amy highlighted a section of genetic code. This is adapting in real time. The cells are rewriting themselves based on environmental feedback. This thing was evolving to fight us even as it died. Patricia stood at the back of the lab, listening. She had given Amy and her team 8 hours to figure out what the Ravagers were and how to kill them permanently. 4 hours remained. Can they be reasoned with? Patricia asked. Negotiated with? Amy looked up from her work. Admiral, these things don't have individual consciousness. Look at the neural structure. Every bioship we captured has identical brain patterns. They're not separate organisms. They're extensions of something bigger. A hive mind, like bees? Like cancer. They exist only to consume and replicate. There's no diplomacy center in their brain. No communication organs beyond basic coordination signals. They're biological machines programmed for one function. Patricia absorbed this. So we're fighting something that can't surrender. They can't even understand the concept. To them, everything is either food or not food. We just proved we're not food, which makes us confusing. But they'll adapt. That's what this genetic structure does. It learns and evolves. Philip pulled up a new display. We found something else. There's a quantum entanglement pattern in the neural tissue. These things are all connected instantaneously across vast distances. Every bioship shares information with every other bioship in real time. Amy felt cold understanding wash over her. That means every Ravager that fought the Defiant transmitted everything they learned about human tactics. By now, the entire species knows how we fight. That's not the worst part, Philip continued. We trace the entanglement signature to a source point. All the connections lead back to one location. He pulled up a star chart. Here, deep in what we're calling Ravager space. Based on signal strength, whatever's at that location is massive. We think it's the central nexus, the queen organism that coordinates everything. Patricia stepped forward, studying the chart. You're saying there's one creature controlling all of them? Essentially, yes. Kill it and the hive collapses. Every bioship becomes just dumb organic matter. How do we kill it? Amy pulled up the genetic analysis again. That's the problem. Look at the redundancy in this biology. Multiple hearts, distributed nervous systems, cellular regeneration that borders on impossible. This species evolved to survive. You could blast a bioship to pieces and chunks of it would still be trying to attack you. The Nexus organism would be even worse, Philip added. Based on the entanglement strength, it's probably the size of a small moon, protected by the entire Ravager fleet. And biologically, it would be nearly indestructible. Patricia stood silent for a long moment. Her tactical mind worked through the problem. They couldn't negotiate with the Ravagers, couldn't scare them away, couldn't win a straight fight against their full fleet. But if there was a central nexus controlling everything, that was a vulnerability. Take out the head and the body dies. How do we find this nexus? We already did, Amy said. It's in a system about 40 light years from here. The Ravagers hollowed out a planet and built the nexus inside it. Based on energy signatures, the entire planet is basically one giant fortress. Defenses? We estimate several thousand bioships protecting it at minimum. Maybe more. And that's just what we can detect from here. Patricia pulled up the tactical display and looked at her fleet strength. 300 ships. Well-trained, well-armed, but still just 300. Against the 2,000 bioships heading toward Lyrian space right now. Plus, however many thousands protected the Nexus, she made her decision with the same cold calculation that had won her every major battle. They couldn't beat the Ravagers in a straight fight, so they wouldn't fight straight. I'm splitting the fleet, Patricia announced. Half stays here to defend the Lyrian homeworld. The other half comes with me to hit the Nexus. Amy stared at her. Admiral, that's suicide. You'll be outnumbered 100 to 1. Maybe, but if we succeed, it won't matter. And if we stay here, we all die anyway. The Ravagers will keep sending ships until we run out of ammunition. We need to cut off the head. What about the Lyrians? Philip asked. If half the fleet leaves, can the rest hold? Patricia looked at the fleet display again. 150 ships to hold against 2,000 Ravagers. The math was brutal, but it was the only play she had. They'll have to get me Derek Walsh. Derek appeared on the screen minutes later, still covered in repair sealant from patching the Defiant. Captain, I need you to take command of the defensive fleet. Hold the Lyrian homeworld for as long as possible. Use every dirty trick you know. Mine the orbital approaches. Use the planet's gravity well. Make the Ravagers pay for every meter. Derek understood immediately. You're going after the Nexus. If we can kill it, this war ends. If we can't, at least we tried. Can you hold here? Derek looked at his tactical display. 150 ships against a force that had consumed civilizations. His crew was exhausted. His ship was barely functional. The Lyrians had no defenses of their own. It was an impossible task. Yes, ma'am. We'll hold. Good, I'm taking the newer ships and the heavier weapons. You get the defensive specialists and anyone who's good at making do with limited resources. I'll leave you everything we have for mines and area denial weapons. When do you leave? 6 hours? That should give us time to prepare and for your people to rest. After that, we're on the clock. The main Ravager fleet will arrive in about 30 hours. You need to hold for at least 48 to give me time to reach the Nexus and destroy it. Derek did the math. The Ravagers would arrive in 30 hours. Patricia needed 48. That meant 18 hours of holding an impossible position against overwhelming odds. Understood. We'll be ready. Patricia ended the transmission and turned back to Amy. Keep studying those samples. I want to know everything about Ravager biology. Weaknesses, vulnerabilities, anything we can exploit. You have 4 hours. Amy nodded and got back to work, but her hands were shaking. Patricia was about to divide their forces in the face of overwhelming enemy strength. It violated every basic military principle. But Amy was starting to understand how humans fought. They didn't follow the rules everyone else used. They made their own rules, usually written in blood and fire. Rachel watched the Ravager fleet approach on long-range sensors and tried not to think about probability. 2,000 bioships against 150 human vessels. The computer kept updating survival estimates, each number worse than the last. She finally disabled the display. Mathematics couldn't account for desperation. Derek had divided the defensive fleet into 3 groups. The first line would meet the Ravagers head-on, buying time. The second would fall back to the orbital defense platforms the humans had thrown together from mining equipment and ship parts. The third would make a final stand in low orbit over the Lyrian homeworld itself. It was a fighting retreat designed to bleed the enemy at every step. "All ships report ready," Rachel said. "The minefields are active. Orbital platforms are online." Derek nodded. The past 18 hours had been brutal. His crews worked without sleep, turning the space around the Lyrian homeworld into a death trap. Thousands of nuclear mines drifted in carefully calculated patterns. Debris fields that looked random but were actually precision obstacles. Every piece of destroyed Ravager bioship from the first battle had been positioned to create navigation hazards. How long until contact? 30 minutes. The Ravager fleet is maintaining formation. They're not trying to be clever. Just planning to overwhelm us with numbers. Then we make them regret it. First line advances. Everyone else holds position. 50 human ships burn forward to meet 2,000 Ravagers. Derek knew most of them wouldn't survive the first engagement. The captains knew it too. But they went anyway because someone had to buy time for Patricia's strike force to reach the Nexus. The fleets met in a storm of fire. Human railguns tore into Ravager bioships at maximum range. The Ravagers responded with biological weapons, spraying acid and releasing swarms of smaller organisms that tried to attach to human hulls. Ships died on both sides, but the math was brutal. For every Ravager destroyed, the humans lost 3 ships. Derek watched his people die and forced himself to stay cold. Second line, prepare to receive survivors. First line, fall back in 30 seconds. The surviving ships from the first engagement burned back toward the orbital platforms, the Ravagers pursuing. That was the trap. As the bioships crossed into the minefield, Derek triggered the detonations. Nuclear fire bloomed across thousands of kilometers. Hundreds of Ravager ships vanished in the overlapping blasts, but hundreds more kept coming. The orbital platforms opened fire, adding their weapons to the defense. These were crude installations built from mining lasers and industrial equipment, but they hit hard. The Ravagers adapted quickly, though. They sent smaller bioships ahead to absorb the fire while their larger vessels hung back and launched organic projectiles that tore through platform armor. "We're losing platforms 7 through 12, Rachel reported. "The Ravagers are coordinating their attacks better than expected. Because they're learning from every engagement," Derek said. "Fall back to the third line. All remaining ships to low orbit." 40 human ships remained from the original 150. They formed a wall between the Ravagers and the Lyrian homeworld, knowing this was where they would make their final stand. Below them, 4 billion Lyrians watched and waited, unable to help, unable to run, just hoping the humans could somehow hold. Meanwhile, Patricia's strike force dropped out of faster-than-light travel in Ravager home space. What they found made hardened combat veterans go pale. The Nexus planet was exactly what Amy predicted, but seeing it was different. The entire world had been converted into a biological fortress. The surface writhed with organic tissue. Massive bioships orbited in protective formations, thousands of them, all focused on guarding the queen organism buried in the planet's core. "Sensor readings?" Patricia asked. Her tactical officer swallowed hard. "Confirmed 3,000 bioships in defensive positions. Energy readings from the planet's surface are off the scale. The Nexus organism is generating enough power to light up a star." Patricia looked at her fleet. 150 ships against 3,000 defenders protecting a target buried inside a planet. The entire mission was impossible by any reasonable standard. "Weapons check." I want to know what we have that can crack a planet. Antimatter warheads. We loaded everyone we could find. Enough explosive power to shatter a moon. Will that kill the Nexus? If we can get the warheads deep enough into the planet's core, yes. But Admiral, the Ravagers won't let us get close. We'd need to fight through 3,000 bioships and then somehow drill into the planet itself. Patricia studied the tactical display, looking for weaknesses. The Ravagers had positioned their fleet in overlapping defensive shells. Smart, any attack would face massive crossfire. But they were protecting something. That meant they were static, locked into defensive positions. The humans had mobility. We're not going to fight through them. We're going to punch one hole straight to the planet and pray it's big enough. All ships, attack formation Sierra. We're going in fast and hard. Maximum speed, all weapons forward. We hit them like a hammer and don't stop. Her fleet formed up into a spear formation, every ship aligned for a single devastating thrust. The antimatter warheads were loaded on the fastest ships, the ones most likely to survive long enough to reach the target. All ships. Execute, Patricia ordered. The human fleet burned forward at maximum acceleration, driving straight toward the thickest part of the Ravager defenses. The bioships opened fire, but Patricia had counted on their coordination. They all targeted the lead ships, trying to stop the attack before it started. That left gaps in their formation. Human ships died by the dozens. But the survivors kept pushing forward, firing constantly, creating a corridor of destruction through the Ravager lines. Patricia's flagship took hits that would have destroyed smaller vessels. Armor boiled away. Hull sections vented to space, but the Relentless kept moving. We're through the outer shell, her tactical officer reported. 60 ships remaining. Clear path to the planet. All ships with antimatter warheads, full burn to the target. Everyone else, cover them. 20 ships carrying humanity's most destructive weapons dove toward the planet's surface while the rest of the fleet fought a desperate rearguard action. The Ravagers realized what was happening and threw everything at the attack ships. 18 of the 20 died before reaching the surface, but 2 made it through. Derek's old academy friend, a pilot named Sam, transmitted one final message as his ship crashed into the planet's organic crust. See you all on Earth. The antimatter warheads detonated deep in the Nexus planet's core. The explosion tore through biological tissue and stone, creating a chain reaction in the queen organism's massive body. The creature that coordinated an entire species died in seconds. Its death scream transmitted across quantum-entangled connections to every Ravager in the galaxy. Illyrian homeworld. Derek watched something impossible happen. The 2,000 Ravager bioships attacking his position simply stopped. Not retreating. Not changing tactics. They just went dead in space, drifting as lifeless organic hulks. What just happened? Rachel asked. Derek pulled up sensor readings and saw the quantum entanglement signatures collapsing. No coordination. No hive mind. Just empty biological shells floating in vacuum. Patricia did it. She killed the Nexus. In Ravager space, only 30 human ships survived the assault. Patricia's Relentless was a burning wreck, barely holding pressure. But they had won. The Queen was dead. The Ravagers were extinct. Silence fell across the battlefield like snow. Oren stood in what remained of the Lyrian council chamber, watching through damaged sensors as thousands of Ravager bioships drifted dead in space. Around him, other Lyrians emerged from shelters, confused and afraid. The enemy that had been systematically exterminating them had simply stopped moving. Communications. Channels lit up with human transmissions. Damage reports. Casualty counts. Ships requesting assistance. Oren listened to the voices of humans calling out for their wounded and their dead, realizing with growing horror what humanity had paid for this victory. "Patch me through to the human fleet," Oren said. "I need to speak with whoever's in command." The response took several minutes. When it came, the voice was tired and rough. "This is Captain Derek Walsh. Admiral Hayes is still in Ravager space. I'm the senior officer at your location." "Captain, what happened?" The Ravagers just stopped. Admiral Hayes reached their nexus and destroyed it. The Ravagers were a hive mind. Kill the central organism and the entire species goes dark. It's over. Oren processed this. An entire species extinct in a matter of days. 14 civilizations avenged. The galaxy's nightmare ended by human action. He should feel relief. Instead, he felt something closer to shock. How many humans died? Derek was quiet for a moment. We're still counting. Looks like we lost about 200 ships at this location. Patricia's strike force started with 150. 30 made it back. Total casualties somewhere around 20,000. 20,000 humans dead. For a species they had never met. To save a civilization that couldn't defend itself. The scale of it made Oren's crystalline structure ache. Why? Oren asked. Why did you sacrifice so much for us? Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because you asked for help? And because things like the Ravagers need to be stopped? If we didn't come, who would? The Galactic Council? They would have debated while you died. But the cost to your people is what it is. We knew the odds when we came. Every person who died here made that choice knowing they probably wouldn't go home. That's what humanity does. We see something that needs to be done and we do it. Oren wanted to understand this. The Lyrians valued life above all else. The idea of deliberately risking death for strangers was alien to their entire philosophy. Yet the humans did it without hesitation. Can I speak with Admiral Hayes? Oren asked. She's on her way back. Her ship is pretty torn up, but she make it. Probably arrive in a day or two. When Patricia's battered flagship limped into Lyrian space 2 days later, Oren insisted on visiting in person. The Relentless looked like it had been through a shredder. Hull breaches everywhere. Entire sections opened to vacuum. But it was flying under its own power. Refusing assistance from support ships, Oren materialized on the bridge through holographic projection, not trusting his physical form to the state of the human ship. Patricia sat in her command chair, one arm in a medical support, burns visible on her face. Around her, the bridge crew worked at damaged stations, keeping their ship alive through skill and determination. Admiral Hayes, Oren said, on behalf of the Lyrian people, I must express our gratitude. You saved our entire civilization? Patricia looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. We did what needed doing. Nothing more. You destroyed an entire species. The Ravagers are extinct, yes. Oren waited for more, but Patricia offered nothing. No justification. No explanation. Just a simple acknowledgement of fact. The Galactic Council is calling your actions genocide, Oren said carefully. They say humanity acted as judge and executioner without authority. The Council is welcome to their opinion. They can file it alongside all the resolutions they wrote while you were dying. I need to understand. How do humans justify this level of violence? You didn't try to communicate with the Ravagers. Didn't attempt negotiation. You just killed them all. Patricia stood slowly, favoring her injured arm. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the floating remains of dead bioships. Your people are philosophers. You value discussion and understanding. That's beautiful. But some things in this universe don't care about philosophy. The Ravagers existed only to consume. They couldn't be negotiated with because they had no capacity for negotiation. They couldn't be deterred because they didn't understand fear. They were biological machines programmed to eat everything they encountered. But to exterminate them completely, Oren pressed. To ensure not a single one survived. That level of destruction. Patricia turned to face him. Let me ask you something. If one Ravager remained, what would happen? Oren thought about it. The Ravagers reproduced by consuming other species. One survivor would eventually rebuild. Start the cycle over. How many civilizations would die next time? They would return, Oren admitted. Exactly. So we made sure they couldn't. That's not genocide. That's removing a threat permanently. When something exists only to destroy, you don't contain it. You erase it. The galaxy fears humanity for this, Orin said quietly. They see what you did to the Ravagers and wonder if you might do it to anyone who threatens you. Good, let them be afraid. Maybe next time a species starts consuming civilizations, someone will stop them before 20,000 humans have to die. Orin was silent for a long moment. He thought about his people, safe now because humans chose to fight. He thought about the 14 civilizations that died because nobody else would act. He thought about the choice Patricia made, splitting her forces, accepting brutal casualties, and pushing forward anyway. I understand now, Orin said. The galaxy doesn't fear humanity because you're cruel. They fear you because when you decide something must be done, nothing can stop you. Patricia smiled, but it was tired. We do what's necessary. Sometimes that means building. Sometimes it means destroying. The Ravagers needed to be destroyed, so we destroyed them. And if the galaxy decides humanity is a threat, then they'll learn the same lesson the Ravagers did. You don't pick a fight with humans unless you're prepared for absolute commitment. We don't do half measures. We don't do warnings. Once we engage, we see it through to the end. Orin left the Relentless with more questions than answers. The Lyrians were saved but fundamentally changed by what they witnessed. They had seen what true violence looked like, what it meant to fight without restraint or mercy. The humans hadn't saved the Lyrians through diplomacy or careful military action. They saved them through overwhelming, brutal, absolute annihilation of everything that threatened them. The Galactic Council issued formal complaints, called for investigations, demanded humanity answer for their actions. Patricia deleted every message. Derek organized the memorial service for the fallen. 20,000 names read aloud over 3 days. The Lyrians attended, every single one who could, understanding that these humans died for them. Dob and across the galaxy, species watched and learned. Humanity had proven something fundamental about their nature. They would help anyone who asked, no matter the cost. But they would also destroy anything that preyed on the helpless, completely, permanently, without hesitation. The age of the Ravagers was over. The age of humanity was just beginning.